Welcome back, Southeastern 14, and welcome in to episode number 3 of Bets and Ball Games with Edwards and Greeson. I am Brian Edwards. He is Jay Greeson. What's going on, brother? How we doing?
Doing great. It's fall break in Chattanooga and joining you from the satellite office in St. Simon's Island, Georgia, which, other than all the Dogs fans around these joint, this is a wonderful place to be.
I was about to say, I bet you're seeing a lot of red and black, and the red and black will be taking over in Nashville at noon Eastern on CBS, Georgia at Vandy, and we have 31.5 and 56 for a total. And a total is where I'll be going. Are you in action on this game? Any thoughts? We did finally get to see Georgia, their get right game, which we speculated on last week, and it turned out to be that against Kentucky.
We did. The side scares me because of how good Georgia played. It's a difficult spot in the sense that they've got an off week after this. And I think the off week is something that we have to talk about this week in SEC football. There are several teams that are about to play their 7th straight game, Florida being one of them.
Yep.
And they're playing 3 of them are playing 3 teams coming off byes. So, and we'll get to that, but Georgia is about to play its 7th straight game with a bye week next week. They can't play really any better offensively than they did in the first half. Carson Beck can't play any better if he'd been playing 11 on 0 in a skeleton drill. But the other part of this is Vandy sucks. And then you look up, and did you know that Vandy has not scored a touchdown against Georgia in 5 years?
I saw it's 55 and 62 to nothing the last 2 years. I did not know it's been 5 years.
And then the previous year, that was like 52-3. And I don't have the exact numbers, but going back and looking at it, it's been 5 years since Vandy has scored a touchdown against Georgia. And when the big boys, when the big boys, traditional teams from across the South go to Nashville, it might as well be what we saw in Oklahoma, Texas. It's 50-50 at best. And when Alabama gets in there and Tennessee gets in there, it's a home game for those programs. So there'll be a ton of red and black there. And, I mean, I'm with you on the total because I think Georgia may get there on their own ball.
Yeah. Yeah. So, all right, what I'm doing both. I'm doing over 43.5. Now, DraftKings is the only, and a lot of our listeners probably can't get a team total till later in the week. But if you have DraftKings, for those in Tennessee and parts all over, right now you can get over 43.5 team total on Georgia. Like I said, 55 and 62 bagel the last 2 seasons against Vandy, off a 51-13 win. You mentioned Bet. He's starting to come on, man, and he's 73.5 completion percentage, 1,886 yards, 11-3 TDI&T ratio, best weapon in the country probably. And Brock Bowers, and here's just not that we wouldn't, or I wouldn't like these plays anyway. I would, but Vandy's best defensive player, DeRicky Wright, is doubtful. He has 2 interceptions, 2 forced fumbles, 29 tackles, one TFL. They've also got 2 other starters out. Kane Patterson, who's got 25 tackles, 3 TFLs, and BJ Anderson also out. As Jay noted, they suck defensively anyway, but they're all – go ahead.
And they do, and being banged up hurts. Here's the other thing that, in addition to it being far from a home field advantage, when Georgia or Tennessee or Florida back in its heyday or Alabama or any of those power programs would play an inferior opponent, 9 times out of 10, it was a home game against a non-conference foe, which means you dress out every alumni's kid, and by the middle of the 3rd quarter, you and I are playing. You go on the road in conference, you can only take 63, or you can only take how many of your scholarship dudes. So how many of Vanderbilt's guys would crack 1 through 63 for Kirby Smart? 5.
Half dozen was what I was going to say. Yes.
So when Kirby calls off the dogs, he's putting more dogs on the floor.
Yes. Yes, he is. Yes, he is. And so I'm going to do the over also at 56 for both teams. I think I may even like the team total for Georgia even better. But over either 6-0-1 or 7-0 for Vandy. And they should have had more points last week. I thought Seals played pretty good against Florida. I doubt many of you watched that game. I somehow got through it and lost my Vandy play because Camryon Johnson dropped a touchdown that Seals hit him right on the hands in 4th and goal on the 4. So anyway, I'm on over 56. I'm on Georgia team total over 43.5. I know it sounds like Jay's not against either of those plays.
No, I'm for both of those picks, and I'll add you one more. And we made a lot of hay a handful of years ago, you and I, before we started doing this for the masses.
Bama first half?
Bama first half made us a whole lot of coin. Tell me why Georgia first half isn't smart here.
I'm not going to tell you that, although I haven't seen that number, but I can get it real quick.
Brian is doing me a solid because we're out of town and we're traveling back tomorrow. We're filming this on Wednesday, so the numbers may fluctuate a bit, but I would look, Georgia first half is going to be low 30s, maybe high 20s.
Oh, are you talking about their team total? I was thinking
team total in the first half. I mean, Carson Beck's going to play the first 2 quarters, and
I like their backup quarterbacks too, though.
Well, and when it comes across the ticker and it's 34-0 late second quarter, I mean, I guess my only real question about this game is why in the hell is it on CBS?
Right. That's a good point. That's a good point. So what I'm seeing right now on the side for the first half is Georgia minus 18.5. 19. I'd have to go to DraftKings and flip through the whole card to find that first half team total. So I'm not going to be able to do that. That total, just both teams first half, is 31 for anyone interested. Let's move on to the next one. We've got Arkansas at Bama at noon. So some good news, excuse me, for Arkansas today. Dwight McGlothern, their top cover corner, who actually, according to Pro Football Focus, is the highest graded, I should say, cornerback in the country, 89.9. He missed last week's game with a concussion, but he will be back. However, 3 other defensive starters for Arkansas are questionable. Chris Paul Jr., second leading tackler with 37 tackles, 3.5 TFLs. Al Walcott, 28 tackles, the transfer from Baylor. And Jalen Braxton, a freshman who has emerged and become a starter in recent weeks. All 3 of those guys are questionable. Alabama's won 16 in a row over the Hogs. And for all the struggles of Alabama, here they are. They survived College Station, even though they committed way too many penalties. And I thought Milroe played pretty good. Started to hit some intermediary throws. Arkansas 0-2 straight up on the road, but 2-0 against the spread at Ole Miss, at LSU, 2 very tough places to play, and they could have won. They were in both those games. Well, I mean, LSU had to get a walk-off field goal, and last week, they could have won. Did KJ throw another pick 6 last week?
I think he did.
I think he did. So right now we're looking at either 19.5 or 20. Obviously for Bama, 46.5 is the total. What you thinking, Jay?
I've got 2 fundamental betting rules that I try to follow. Number 1, trains always crash, and that's why casinos build those wonderful buildings and can give everybody $5 lobster dinners. And number 2, lines that look too good to be true normally are. Like everybody falling all over themselves about Kentucky plus 14.5 going into last week, or a whole lot of different lines. There's 1,000 different examples where you go, that doesn't make any sense. And then it proves to make a ton of sense. I can't figure out why this total is so low. I cannot figure out.
Yeah.
46, you're telling me that you're planning this game to be 29-10? Or I'm sorry, you said it's a 20. So 46 is 31-15. I mean, uh, I can't fathom that because Alabama's starting to find a little bit, and I expect this to be Jalen Milroe's best game of the year because not only did they get a monstrous road win where he played well, he had a Mario Cristobal level brain fart throwing that ball on his own. I mean, you could tell the way the offensive staff reacted when all they had to do was take 3 knees and walk out of College Station with the W. He took the snap, did not hand it off because nobody was covering the wide receiver off to his left, but he short armed it. So it was an incomplete pass. And I thought Saban was going to lose all of his hairpiece. I mean, it was all of those implants just almost completely popped out of his head like somebody squeezed a porcupine. And so the entire thing, I expect that to be a growing experience for him. And they found their next dude on the perimeter. We all talk about the skill players Alabama's gone through. Running back, start rattling them off. You starting with Derrick Henry, going through the years, and even before that with Eddie Lacy and the whole kid and caboodle of them. Mark Ingram, all of them. Quarterbacks, dear goodness, they got like 4 guys starting on Sundays now. The Burton kid is their next wide receiver, and that dude lit Texas A&M up and was happy to tell them about it. So, I mean, I think this is going to be a good place for KJ Jefferson and his mama in the KJ Jefferson T-shirt. I'm certain she'll be in attendance. I'm her biggest fan. I need a KJ Jefferson mama T-shirt is what I need. So I'm going against one of my own rules here. When a line looks too good to be true, it normally isn't true. But I've got to back the over on this. 46 is too few. Too few. Because they scored 40, they went over 46 or scored 46 in College Station, and Texas A&M's defense is light years better than Arkansas.
Oh, yeah, no doubt. So here, last 4 games, Arkansas gives up 38 at home to BYU. They give up 34 to LSU, which actually is not that shameful of a defensive performance. 34 to A&M, but A&M did have a pick 6, and they had a lot of special teams yardage from Aniyah Smith. But A&M's offense, well, Alabama
Yeah, I mean,
offense.
A&M's not going to trot out more athletes than Alabama.
Right. No, heck no. Actually, they held Ole Miss to 27. That's good, but we should point out that Trey Harris got injured. Well, it was a rough week for injuries in my player props. Trey Harris over 73.5 receiving yards out in the first quarter. Anthony Richardson over 44.5 rushing yards out in the first quarter. That's the danger of player props, obviously. Yep. You made that all made a whole lot of sense. I mean, Alabama, 58 combined against Texas, 63 combined against Middle Tennessee. Now they had the rain game in South Florida with the backup quarterbacks that aren't going to play anymore. 57 against Mississippi State. I mean, all those numbers are double digits over this total. Now, only 46 last week, but there could have been more points in that game. Anyhow, so no, I'm not against what you're saying there. I will point out another thing. This is the 4th Friday in a row Arkansas has got to get on an airplane. They went to Baton Rouge, they went to Arlington, they went to Oxford, and now they're going to Tuscaloosa. I mean, come on, Sankey. I mean, Arkansas gets those on the schedule every year.
Yeah, they do. And it is. And if we're going to start talking about schedules, I don't know what the next one on your docket is, but this is a dreadful spot for Texas A&M. They're about to play their 7th game in a row. They had their hearts ripped out in front of what was a great crowd and what could have been a real moment that Jimbo desperately needed, and they just let it slip through their fingers, and Bama was Bama. And now they got to get on a plane from College Station and get to Knoxville and play a Tennessee team that was off last week and got healthy. This is a terrible spot for the Aggies.
I agree. And right now we're looking at Tennessee 3.5, total anywhere from 54.5 Actually, that 54.5 has come off. So it's either 55. It looks like 55 across the board, except for DraftKings at 55. And a hook, I agree. I lean Tennessee. The Vols 10-4 against the spread as a home favorite under Josh Heupel. And let's see, A&M. Wow. So they're in the exact spot as the Gators, as you've pointed out. 7th game in 7 weeks, just like Florida, going on the road. They go to Neyland. Florida goes to Williams-Brice, and they face opponents in Tennessee and South Carolina that have had 2 weeks to prepare. A&M's lost 7 in a row on the road. Now, obviously, Arlington was a neutral game. A&M 5-5 against the spread as a road dog under Jimbo. Now, the look-ahead line last week, DraftKings had it at 5 on Thursday, but they moved to 4 on Friday. And so not much. I mean, I guess maybe they've, downgraded A&M by a half point off of last week's performance. Maybe or maybe not. I'm not even sure how the I think it was either 3.5 or 4 is all I've seen on Tennessee this week. So if I can get 3, I mean, I'm not saying it's one of my top plays, but if I could buy it at 3 at minus 130 or cheaper, it wouldn't be a big play for me, but I would lean Tennessee. And you're saying Tennessee's definitely one of your picks, correct?
Absolutely. I love the Vols in this spot. I think a big part, don't get me wrong, Texas A&M's got a whole lot of NIL money invested in a defensive line that's got future pros on it, and they can get after the passer. But Joe Milton is every bit as athletic as Milroe is, and they play exclusively from the shotgun, and they're not going to have the home crowd. Alabama's line got shook last week, and that pressure only enhanced by the 12th man. And what they have, 5 pre-snap procedure penalties?
I think it was more than that.
It felt like a ton. I looked out of my house in Chattanooga, and I think they were snapping the ball in Hickson. They had backed them up so far. So, I mean, it's one of these things that, I mean, on the road, that's a different kettle of fish. And I know this. I've been to a couple 3 games in Neyland under Heupel. The 12th man was loud. Neyland will be every bit as loud in the other direction. And while Alabama got after Max Johnson and Texas A&M is number 3 in America, averaging 5 sacks a game, you know who's number 6 in the country in sacks per game? That'd be your Tennessee Vols. And Max Johnson, nowhere near as fleet of foot as Joe Milton or a whole lot of the other quarterbacks in this league. And if he's standing back there and is easy pickings with the place going nuts, this is a terrible spot for the Aggies. Yes, if you can find it at 3, I highly recommend getting it 3 just to protect yourself in an overtime situation or a last-second game, because the A&M's got some dudes. But I love this spot for the Vols.
So you said you've been to Neyland 3 times, or were you kidding? You've been like a dozen times.
No, I've only been there 3 because my days as a sports editor, 3 times under Heupel. I've been there countless times in the last 20 years in Chattanooga, but in 3 times under Heupel.
Gotcha. So have I ever told you about my only trip there?
No.
And why I'll never go back?
Okay.
Because cream cheese bagel treatment, 31 zip, 94. Peyton was a true freshman. By chance, do you have any idea who might have started that game at quarterback? And it was not Peyton. Talking about for the Volunteers.
Was it Todd Helton?
You doggone right. It sure was. It sure was. And was Tennessee in the red zone with Peyton getting some playing time late in the 4th quarter? Yes. Did Spurrier tell Kevin Carter and Ellis Johnson, starters back in? Starters back in. Yes, he did. Why would I ever go back? I will not.
Well, and I'll counter that. I've been to the Swamp once. Same year. Nope, 95. Went to the Swamp in 95.
Oh, wait. No, October 15th, 94. Patrick Nix to Frank Sanders when we were number 1 in the nation. October 15th, 1994.
Yep, that was the week I went to. I almost got my ass kicked by a 16-year-old woman in a tank top. I was obnoxious. I mean, obnoxious.
Oh, that's great. That's great. So you have that story with the Swamp. You're never going back, right?
No, go home.
Nope.
It'll never be better than that. It'll
Right.
never be better than that.
Yes. Oh man, we were. That was when Terry Dean got yanked and never played a snap again. And
Terry Dean got Wally pipped by Shane Werfel's Lou Gehrig is what happened with that one.
Indeed, he did. Okay, he likes the Vols a little more than I do, but I'm a hard lean to the Vols, and I'll probably have a little bit on it at -3. All righty, so let's go now to Williams-Brice, South Carolina. Or I'm sorry, Florida at South Carolina. Big revenge game for the Gamecocks. Like we just said, same situation as A&M and the Vols. SEC Network, 3:30 Eastern kickoff. South Carolina 2-3 straight up, 3-2 against the spread, but they are 2-0 both straight up and against the spread at home. They are 7-2 ATS as a home favorite under Shane Beamer. They kicked the ever living daylights out of Florida at Williams-Brice 2 years ago. They will have a raucous crowd waiting for the Gators, who are 1-10 in their last 11 true road assignments. And Florida, when they have not been playing in the swamp, so that would, excuse me, that would include the game in Jacksonville against Georgia last year, the game against Oregon State at the Las Vegas Bowl. Under Billy Napier, the Gators are 1-7 in those 8 games, not in the swamp. And all 7 of those losses have been by margins of at least 5, and 4 have been by margins of at least 13 points. So I am on the Gamecocks, who are 12-4 straight up, 11-5 against the spread in the 16 home games. excuse me, under Beamer, which are home favorite and home dog situation. Spencer Rattler on the season, 73% completion percentage, 1,411 yards, 7-3 TD INT ratio. And it's like we got a little technical issues going on with Jay, so I will just share a few other notes. Florida 4-2 straight up on the season, 2-4 ATS, but 0-2 both straight up and against the spread in a pair of road games. As a road dog under Napier, the Gators are 3-2 ATS. Florida's ranked 3rd in the SEC in scoring defense, only giving up 16.8 points per game. So I got South Carolina on the money line at -125. I can't remember if I got that Sunday night or Monday morning. But now most books are up to 2 or 2.5 on the Gators. Actually, looks like there's several 2s that are still out there. But there's some 2.5s. The total 51.5. Florida +110 on the money line. Look, if you could get the Gamecocks at -130 or cheaper on the money line, I would do that. But again, like Jay said, we're recording on Wednesday, so by the time I'm not sure if we'll have this out on Southeastern 14 tonight or sometime in the morning, but there could be line movement between now and then. So I would like it all the way up to -3. Let's get Jay's take on the Gamecocks against my sorry ass Gators.
Well, the Gators, as we kind of discussed one of my rules earlier, that line looked too good to be true, and we both like Vandy, or thought Vandy was really the only play because Florida shouldn't be giving up that many points to just about anybody. And they got a little fortunate with the cover, as the drop pass you discussed, but they didn't. They played well, and I mean, I don't know, the bar is so shaky right now for Napier and that fan base that has been spoiled for the last quarter century. But this is again a terrible spot for a team that's about to play its 7th straight week, is banged up. Even the names you didn't mention, the guys who are nicked and bruised and just 7 straight weeks of playing major college football takes its toll. And South Carolina had a week off. Beamer, man, he gets vengeful and stuff like this. He'll pull. Beamer's one of those guys. He coaches like Mickelson plays golf. He's real keen on making everybody realize how clever he is. So, but, and I'm not going to say anything about Spencer Rattler's face stuff because my wife thinks I'm a frecklist. But he's the best quarterback on the field, and he's got a chance to put up SEC Player of the Week numbers. And that line under a field goal, that I like Tennessee best this weekend. I like Georgia's offense, probably second best this weekend, but I like South Carolina a lot too.
Yeah, I mean, how can you not? Florida just has not been getting it done on the road. All right, speaking of the road, your alma mater is on the road, and Wednesday we have LSU minus 11 with a total of 61. I did find a stat that I found to be pretty wild. LSU has not beaten Auburn by more than 4 since 2015, which obviously applies here because they're laying a touchdown more than 4. Now, I know that me and you have been big proponents of LSU overs, but Auburn's offense kind of scares me. We know we got that 94 yards passing or less streak of 6 games. Is that against FBS or Power 5 competition, by the way? I forgot.
I believe it's Power 5.
Okay. The unders on a 5-0 run in this head-to-head rivalry. I don't know that matters because LSU's defense has never, been this bad. Now they will get Omar Spates back, the Oregon State transfer linebacker, which is a pretty big deal. But LSU's games averaging combined scores of 77.1 points per game. Now, Daniels had the adrenaline going last week. Are those ribs going to be hurting more? There's nothing worse than a doggone rib injury. And I know you're on the record, LSU and USC's overs until they buck you off. And by the way, you weren't awake, were you? Because I almost texted you to tell you how lucky you got on the USC game going over. I think it was double OT. I'm going to assume you were not awake for Pac-12 After Dark, the feel-good hours.
No, I was not awake in the feel-good hours, but I will say this. I'm never going to apologize for a good win because the casino ain't going to apologize for the bad beat.
Nor should you.
So, in the grand scheme of things, overtime led USC into the 80s again. And I'm just, honestly, I'm dancing with who brought me. It is, you want to talk about a contrast of styles. It is Auburn's resistible force against LSU's movable object. I mean, it is. I don't even know what to expect when Auburn's offense is on the field against that defense that is so cute when it tries to tackle. But the reverse of that, and the thing that scares me about the over truly, is Auburn's going to hold them to more field goals. And I know FSU's got a lot of talent. Auburn will swing you defensively.
Auburn's got a much better defense. FSU's defense is trash.
Says the guy who couldn't pay FSU a compliment during the height of the Bowden era. I'm gonna play the over small because I'm gonna dance with who brought me.
Sure.
But I'm gonna do it just out of superstition because I really don't like anything on this game. The numbers you talk about play out. Auburn goes down there and the place is nuts and it brings out the best in everybody. But I could see this game being 48-10, and I could see it being or 48-10 or more because I know Carson Beck's had a whole lot of stats, and I know Brock Bowers is the best player in the SEC. Jaden Daniels is my offensive player of the year because without Jaden Daniels, not only is LSU not in the conversation to win the West, LSU would be lucky to be 2-4.
Yeah, I mean, and that third down scramble when we know his ribs were hurting deep in their own
Yes.
territory when they were down for, I mean, that was big. And then the next play he hits neighbors with a strike for about 45 yards. Yeah, he was incredible. At crunch time, hurting. That was a big hit he took after he thought he had scored a touchdown, but he got called back for holding. I'm with you, man. I don't like the side. I mean, if I had to pick it, I'd probably pick Auburn. And y'all do play good defense. I mean, y'all held Joe Burrow to what? What y'all lose to them? 24-20 and 19? I mean, it was y'all held that was that Derek Brown defense. Y'all held them
Yeah, but Derek Brown was a mother now. I
ooh,
mean, dear Lord.
he was about to fight somebody in the NFL last week in the back in the did you see that?
Yes. I'll say this. Defensive linemen who wear a single digit, don't mess with those dudes.
Uh-uh.
Don't insult them. Don't say anything bad about their sister or their mama. And if they say they'd like an extra glass of water, just go ahead and bring it to them. They
Yep.
just go ahead and bring it to them.
Yeah.
They probably need it.
Yeah, for sure. So Missouri at Kentucky, do you have anything on this one as UK is 2.5 and 51.5? Schrader for Missouri, 577 rushing yards, 6 touchdowns, 6.1 yards per carry. He is a question mark. Um, and well, UK got their britches beat off them, and Mizzou lost an absolute heartbreaker last week.
Well, and I hope we didn't put the bets and ball game curse on the Cook kid where we talked about his record for not throwing a pick, and then he threw several, including a pick six that allowed every LSU bettor to do a little happy dance and to cover the number. But I think this completely hinges on the running back you just mentioned. If he's on the field and you can get points, I think Missouri scores with Kentucky, especially the Kentucky defense we saw Saturday, because that Missouri offense is pretty good.
Real good, I
And
think. I love their receivers from Weiss, the OU transfer. Burton's the first team All American, right? If the season ended today.
yes, and so you're telling me they're Kentucky's going to flip a switch and be that much better defensively? I mean, I know they're at home, but I mean,
The over's my play.
I if I was going to take a side, I would go that way. But it also hinges a great deal on the status of the running back because Missouri, while they've got really nice pieces and a really good scheme, they're not good enough to dominate you and be one dimensional. And without
Right.
that, and Cook is really good with the play action and keeping defenses honest. So if they don't have to worry about that bell cow running back there, this is a stay away for me because it's real. It'd be real interesting to see how his team responds to Mark Stoops doing all that whining about NIL and Georgia buying players and all of that stuff. Because I mean, he's trying to preach to the fan base that we need more NIL money, and that's understandable. Hell, Saban does that, but it also could come across in the locker room like going, "What does he think we are, chop liver?" I
Right.
mean, so I mean, you run a real.
Yeah.
It's a fine line on what you want to say, especially on a coach's show like that, where it's not pointed questions by yahoos like me in the media, where you can say, well, he spun it and fake news and Donald Trump and whatever else you want to say.
All right, let's get us some non-SEC picks, and my favorite's going to be going down in Corvallis, where Oregon State's just an automatic bet at home. They're undefeated in 3 home games this year, winning by margins of 48, 17, and 14. And by the way, they're hosting UCLA, which is off the big win, giving Wazoo its first loss. And Oregon State is -3.5 or 4. Believe this one's a little late night, little Pac-12 after dark, which is always fun.
Is that a Friday game or a Saturday game?
It's a Saturday game. Actually, I'm
Okay.
sorry. It is a 8 p.m. Eastern start, so not as late. Total of 54. So Oregon State is 15-1, both straight up and against the spread at home. In their last 16, the only outright loss by 3 to USC last year. And then, regardless of venue, Oregon State is 12-2 straight up, 11-3 ATS. Their last 14, the 2 outright losses at Washington last year by 3. by 3 at Wazoo this year, and 10 of those 12 wins by margins of 12 or more, all about the Beavers. What you thinking non-SEC wise, Jay?
Well, I love that play. I love that play, and for two reasons. The UCLA freshman quarterback's a different kid at home and on the road. When he went to Utah, and I know Utah will light people up, but they were lucky to get a touchdown. They lost that game 14-7. So going to Corvallis is going to be every bit as difficult as it was going to face the Utes. I'm going to stay out there. Washington has the better offense. Washington has the better quarterback. Washington's at home. I think Washington is every bit as good defensively, and I think Washington may be better coached. So the Huskies,
I agree with that on the coaching part too.
The Huskies are laying 2 on a whole lot of numbers.
Like three at most books right now.
Okay, well then it's gone up a number, and I know we're doing this on Wednesday, and it'll probably drop sometime a couple of days before kickoff. That number is only going to go up because I think Washington is the play, and I think Michael Penix Jr. is right there with Caleb Williams as the 2 dudes to beat to win the Heisman. And I mean, they light you up, and they will put 45 on you before you blink your eyes.
Would you like it at 4 if that's what our listeners are getting come tomorrow afternoon? Okay.
I don't want to give up more than a touchdown. But
oh God, it ain't going that far. It ain't going that far.
I can't see it going that big.
No,
and I know you and I talked a little bit about as we grow both in audience and what we want to try to offer. I think the in-game play of the weekend is Miami, North Carolina, because Miami is going to be over the moon emotional one way or the other. They're either going to come back from the Mario Cristobal world class. Honestly, on a quick side note, before we get back to bets and ball games, shouldn't that be a fireable offense for cause? I mean,
million percent. He did it out. I had Stanford in 2018 when he did the same garbage.
Well, I mean, because think about everybody else in a working class job. If you make that big of a fundamental mistake that cost your sales department a chance at your biggest client, if you were in the newspaper business and you got caught plagiarizing, it's not illegal, but bye. I mean, have you seen the number that Mario Cristobal has not won an ACC home game?
I know. He sure as hell lost a bunch of them by double-digit margins. That was coaching malpractice. He should have his coaching card yanked. And he didn't learn from doing the same thing out at Oregon against Stanford.
And he was gutless in the postgame. He was gutless in the postgame.
I called him a coward and a moron. How does he walk to that mic and not immediately alleviate blame from his players and say, that's on me, I am a dumbass?
Right. How do you not do it? Now, he did it Monday at his coach's press conference, but so what?
So what? Late, pal.
So here is if it galvanizes the locker room, Miami is better at a whole lot of places over North Carolina, with the exception of quarterback. So if it galvanizes the locker room and those guys come out, and you'll be able to tell it in warmups. You'll be able to tell it when the announcers are talking. If these guys are into the game or they're milling about, that's a game that really feels like a game you can hammer in play. Because let that Drake May avalanche start, and that could be 45-10. You know what I'm saying? Because that can get away from you in a hurry after the heartbreak and the goals that were lost against Georgia Tech in the final seconds, the blame game, all of the things that mushroom clouded out of, as you rightly said, Cristobal's coaching malpractice.
Yep. All right. Wrapping up third episode of Bets and Ball Games with Edwards and Greeson. So I am on Oregon State. I'm on Vandy, Georgia. over. I'm on Georgia's team total over. I'm on Mizzou, Vandy over. I am on the Gamecocks. I certainly lean the Vols. If you can get 3, I am probably a pass LSU Auburn. I'm starting to lean toward the over. If I can get 46.5, 47 for Bama, Arkansas. And I'm also on West Virginia on Thursday night, -2.5 at Houston. Last words or just review your picks. And Deshaun Watson did not practice today for the Browns, so I think you keep riding the Niners in the NFL. What you got as we wrap up?
Well, quickly, I'll start. I like Tennessee laying as many as 4 and even 4.5 against the Aggies. It's a terrible spot for the Aggies. Same theory for South Carolina laying less than the field goal against Florida. You talked me into Georgia, almost every Georgia offensive over metric that you can grab. I do like Alabama, Arkansas over, and out of the league, I would. I'm on Washington over Oregon because I've seen Bo Nix way too many times do Bo Nix things on the road, whether it's the underhanded pass to a defensive tackle or he runs the option and flips it to a guy not looking. I've seen this movie, and it's as bad as Caddyshack 2.
I also lean Notre Dame at -3 or less. That Notre Dame's had a tough run of games, but they're back at home now. USC's got to travel across the country. USC's off a triple overtime game, and their defense is straight up trash. If you want to be one of our sponsors, please reach out to our girl, Caroline Smith. Please like, subscribe to Southeastern 14. You can follow me at Vegas B. Edwards on Twitter. You follow Jay at the letter J Greeson FTP. Tell them about your newsletter and all that good stuff before we're out of here.
Is that FTP or TFP, blind man?
I can't
it's
make
TFP.
it out very good.
I know the answer to it. And you can subscribe to my Jay's Play afternoon email at timesfreepress.com, and I write a morning all things sports pop culture column called the 5 at 10 Monday through Friday at 10 a.m. at timesfreepress.com.
And that was a no sweat Braves win the other night, right?
Yeah, just had it all the way. And I wrote a column about how Larry Munson would have described it, like, oh my God, this Zach Wheeler is 6'9". He must weigh 400 pounds. Dear God, Ronald Acuna can run. Run, Ronald, run. There's going to be some property torn up in Ackworth tonight.
Ackworth. Run, Lindsey, run. All right. The great Mr. Munson on the way out the door. All right. For Jay Greeson, I'm Brian Edwards. Thanks for listening. Please spread the word, and we will talk to you next time on Bets and Ball Games with Edwards and Greeson. We are over and out.